Hey everybody, welcome back to the 30 Minutes of Fame podcast. Today I've got another amazing guest I've met on TikTok through the recovery side of things. Cliff is in Ohio, just south of us here. Welcome to my show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
So you've do work with Rise and Recover. Um, how did you come about just sharing your story on online and go from there?
So, I practice, I'm in AA. That's the program that I choose. It's one of our beliefs is, to keep what we have, we got to give it away. I've always wanted to do something along those lines. So what I did was took some suggestions, right? Because it's a program of suggestions I work. And I just kind of ran with it, man. I had to rise out of the depths and start to recover. And that's where the name came from. And it's been really beneficial up to this point, for myself, for my personal growth, and as well as some other people. And I couldn't be happier with the way it's going. We're just over 2 weeks in at the start of it, but we've already doubled in size, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love it. We actually met through Mel, who I just had on my second last episode, who's just an awesome person doing great things. And I did a lot of scrolling on your page and a lot of watching because there's thing I found about online and TikTok and Twitter is a lot of fake when things get fatty. Like a fad right now, like when that whole Charlie Kirk thing happened was, I'm going to church this Sunday, lasted for 2 weeks, and then people disappear. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at spotting fake. I mean, I've been doing this kind of stuff online since 2007, and people come and go, and then they start and then they stop. But just from your words and your posts, I can tell that you're a genuine person and someone that gives a shit about other people. And
Yeah,
just watching your
absolutely.
lives and like how you interact with people too. So, um, how long have you been on the recovery side of things, and how long were you in that world?
So I'm 38 years old. I've been in and out of recovery and addiction pretty much since I was 18. It started traditionally with a DUI, and I'd have to go and get a slip sign, but I was never really trying to work a program. I didn't really get serious until 2000 and the 2017. That was when I got my longest prison sentence. Would have been my second prison sentence, and I really tried to figure it out. Then I went when I went to prison. I enrolled in a lot of programs, a year-long therapeutic community, and I really tried. At this moment in time, I have 16 months. I know that may seem small, but any day is good. This guy was traditionally able to get you 9 to 11 months. I don't have no problem getting it together. My problem's been keeping it together.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been able to put together over a year until now. And basically, it's just because I stopped trying to pick and choose what worked and what didn't work, right? I just started doing it, working the steps, doing different things. Founders Day was a huge thing for me. A lot of power in that 3 day gathering up here in Akron, Ohio. Um, so yeah, man, I picked up things along the way though. They say the seeds get planted, and I'm grateful that they did.
I had one of my guests I had on. It was only a 15-minute episode, but he went home from a pub with a guy. He wasn't driving, he was shotgun, and they got T-boned, and this guy's got like severe brain injury, and it really makes you look at yourself. Like I used to be at the pub at 1:30 in the morning, and everyone's like, "Oh, who's the soberest person to drive?" And thankfully, nothing like that ever happened to me. But having this show and just having all of these people on from different stories with it's such a big wake up call, man. I'll never go back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing for me would have actually happened my last prison term. When I went in, I had high motivation and high hopes to get it figured out, right? Um, when I came home, I didn't. But during my prison time, um, December 5th of 2017, I lost my sister to this disease. She liked to be intravenous, and she went septic, and She was 19, and that hit me hard, really hard. And then March 10th of 2021, I was still incarcerated. I hadn't seen my mom, and February 9th, I actually got to see her of that year. And 30 days later, she passed from a relapse. My dad also, he died in 22. And as a direct result of this disease, so everybody I grew up with, um, they're gone. Incarceration's been a big thing for me too because um, I lost my grandmother about a month and a half after April 26th of 21, after my mom passed. And then this last time that I did a 6 month program, I lost my aunt. We found out she had cancer, and like 2 weeks later, she was gone. And I directly related to my mom and my sister, and even my father. Um, I developed a lot of survivor skill out of that, and those things, not dealing with them correctly, took me back out a couple times. And I don't deal with things that way today. I've been shown a better way, and it's been very productive for me. Um, but that's also why I'm so enthusiastic about trying to get the message out. That platform is a blessing. Whatever comes of it, it doesn't matter as long as somebody's getting benefit from it. Because it benefits me as well. But ultimately, I don't want somebody to have to go through what I did. So um, my sister, she was a great individual, and I miss her dearly. But I refuse to tear myself down any longer over that. It's just not worth it. Life is good today.
You know what's amazing when I think about that? Like, so many people online on these lives, YouTube, all these podcasts, people are just obsessed with numbers. And
Yes.
for me, if I see a post or a view that gets 20 views, and then there's some that I have one that has 30,000 views of myself playing sober at a church for the first time ever. And it was the most nerve wracking moment of my life. But when someone reaches out to me from that 10 view video and say, hey, I saw this video, you inspired me to go get some help. To me, that's worth more than someone handing me a check for 2 million bucks. And there's so much fake and likes and like I don't know. That's why I love
Yeah, no,
finding.
I can totally relate to that, Dave. There was the one video where I spoke about the mother on the live. We was on a live, and she come in, she was just looking for answers, man. Her son was I think, I can't remember if it was her son or daughter, but she was just looking for answers, and it immediately made me think, how many of my family members, my wife, how many times did I do that to them?
Hmm.
And I've had some communication with that lady and a handful of others, just trying to get some support, maybe a reasonable solution or a suggestion of how to deal with things, whether they're active or dealing with somebody active. And, I think that's where the real substance comes in, right? A 10 view video with three solid comments is better than a 40,000 like video, about nothing. I can totally relate with you on that, man.
Before I started this podcast, it was inspired because I was a guest on. There's this nurse in Chicago, and she has a little podcast. It gets like 10 views a week, and she saw my story. It was on like CNN and Fox and stuff. And she's like, "Are you sure you want to do this little podcast?" And I'm like, "Listen, because in 2010, when I was at my rock bottom, I was at a balcony on a 14th floor of an apartment building, 9 pitchers of beer in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I thought to myself, would anyone even give a shit if I leaped off here?" And thankfully, I didn't. 2 years later, I became a dad and now all this cool stuff. But I said to her, you know what? If one of those 10 people is me on that balcony 10 years ago and they come across this, that's more valuable than being on like, however many media sites. So it's all about impact. And I love three of my last four guests, and now you have all been recovery stories. I go through waves where it's magicians and then musicians, but I love it. I just love sharing people's stories. Um, what's your thought on people? I see people posting like 16 days sober or 1 month sober or this many days or this many days, this many minutes. I used to be like that, but now I'm just about one of my guests said it's just about moments. And then
Yeah,
Mel said just getting through that next moment, like the anniversary of someone dying, or like my Blue Jays just lost the most heartbreaking game seven
yeah.
I've ever witnessed. And
Sorry for your loss.
old me would have been shit faced in about an hour, but I never touched it. I sat with my girlfriend, and then my daughter came the next day. So it's just
Yeah,
about getting
I
through
can
those
relate to
moments,
that.
eh?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I'm a big Buckeye fan. I drink because the Buckeyes won, Buckeyes lost, Buckeyes weren't playing. You know what I mean? The Buckeyes went to a bowl game. They didn't go to a bowl game. Like you name it, I did it. But the when people were posting about how little of recovery time they have, I look at it like this. That's a win. One day's a win. I remember at the beginning of my journey that 24 hours seemed like eternity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the fact that they're trying to put those days together and move towards a better tomorrow and future and all those things, like I fully support it. For me, the newcomer is the most important person in the room because it gives me a glimpse into what I don't want to go back to. I've been that person. And it's not about the amount of time; it's about the desperation in their eyes, the uncertainty in their step, the powerlessness in their movements. That's really disheartening to see. And what I really enjoy is I really enjoy starting to watch those people, whether it's online or in person. I watch these people, and when they start to connect the dots, you know, um, like that's satisfying for me. It's like, man, whether I know I had an impact on that or not, it doesn't matter. I don't, like I say, I practice AA. I know people who practice NA, God, abstinence with a strategy, whatever it is. I don't care how you get it, just get it. Get recovery, whatever works for you. And not to shout out TikTok so much, but that's the beauty of that platform. I like to call my platform a no nonsense safe space, right?
Mm-hmm.
No nonsense doesn't mean we don't laugh and we don't joke, because we do. That's part of recovery, is being able to laugh. But no nonsense. If you come in and you're on some nonsense, you're trying to blow smoke, we're going to call you on it. But we also know it's a safe space to be able to be vulnerable, because when you're vulnerable, you grow. And we've been able to do that. And the platform allows all of us, because all of us ain't going to be at a AA meeting or an NA meeting, right? We would have never met. I've connected with people in the UK, South Africa, obviously Canada, all over the states, and those people have helped me just as much as I hope I help them. So, um, the early people, man, obviously you try to give them a little bit more suggestions, uh, but ultimately the consistency, it'll either be there or it won't, right? Um, if they start at 16, I want to see 17 and so on. But if they fall off, I just, I can't allow myself to be consumed by it. I'll pray for them. But I'm proud of them, for lack of better explanation.
Anyone that comes in a room or goes on a live and you post something like that, it not only keeps you accountable to yourself, because that's the number one thing, it keeps you accountable to your family, and also keeps you accountable to anyone that sees that. Um,
Yes.
I used to be almost 400 pounds 6 years ago, and I've dropped 175 pounds. So it's
Wow.
kind of funny
Congratulations.
how weight loss and recovery are almost identical, and it just made me realize it. Thinking, if there's someone that's weighing himself every day, let them do it if it works for them. Um, but when I went online, I posted a thing saying, "Hey, I'm gonna lose 100 pounds this year, and I'm gonna donate $1 to my favorite military charity." So by doing that, it kept me accountable mostly to myself. But by posting that publicly, even if you delete something, it's on the internet forever.
Oh, yeah.
But it keeps you accountable to everyone that's read that, everyone that's liked that, everyone that's commented on it. And most importantly, it kept me accountable to the charity I was picking. So I don't know if when people are just starting out and saying, hey, how about you take one tab from 1 month of what you used to drink in a month and donate to your favorite charity, even 10% of it. For like every month that you're sober, donate to like, MAD or some recovery charity. So I mean, if people are just starting out and they want to be kept accountable, that's another really interesting
Yeah,
brainwave.
I agree. There's all kinds of different strategies we could put into place, what you're speaking of, or just that's like in my program, they call it 90 and 90, 90 meetings in 90 days, and it helps. Some people it helps in the beginning to get them in that routine because, I know in my addiction, I didn't have no type of routine, no type of discipline, not nowhere near what I do today, so honestly, it took a lot of vulnerability and telling people like, "Hey, I can't do this." I had people hold me up when I couldn't hold myself up. That's how the beginning of my story went as far as my recovery journey. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be. But the accountability part, I mean, it's rather easy now, right? But um, in the beginning, it wasn't. It wasn't, and I really wish that that that's kind of the gray area of the social media, right? Because if somebody comes in a meeting and they say, yeah, hey, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. All right, that's cool. I'm going to check you out in the parking lot. I'm going to see how you move then. I'm going to see how you talk then. I'm going to see how you act at the supermarket. I'm going to see how you act on your social media. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Then you can be like, okay, they're doing it or they're not, you know? But when it's only just the internet, it's kind of hard to dissect that, so we just try to, at least I just try to help them, at least believe them, and they until they show me they're not serious, I'm gonna do everything I can to help them, But yeah,
So
absolutely.
that first time that you were incarcerated, I know when I got shit going through my head, I put on music or I'll do something to escape. But that first, say, hour or two when you're in there, you're checked in, and you're just alone with your thoughts, how freaking scary was that? Like, I can't even imagine.
Well, for me it was very scary. I have a very lengthy felony record, so I mean, I have my share of misdemeanor lower level stuff that I knew I was going to get bonded out, so at those times it wasn't a big deal. But when them big things hit, it was like, man, what did I do? How long am I going for? This last number that I just went, um, their first offer was 23 years.
Wow.
And I was like, I thought my life was over. It was a pretty big, multiple cases, multiple indictments. But it was all related to my drug use, stealing checks, all kinds of stuff. And they came at me with 23, they came at me with 14, and then the day of sentencing, they came with 7. And my lawyer had been fighting for 4 years, 11 months, because in Ohio, if you get 4 years, 11 months or less, you can do what's called a judicial release after 2 years, essentially, which is the new parole. And but yeah, then first hours, it's like it's a bit of uncertainty because uh, it's really chaos. The uncertainty brings on chaos because something's going to happen, but you don't know what. And the streets I was playing in were very big streets, right? Came with big cases, and I'm just very blessed and fortunate to have another chance, because outside looking in, if you were to read my record without ever meeting me, you'd be like, yeah, this guy shouldn't be walking the streets. Like I say, it wasn't nothing violent or nothing like that, no, but still, I have 17 felony convictions on my record.
Wow.
Like, there's people that's put away for a lot longer for a lot less. Um, I've just been very fortunate.
Wow. And now you got this new purpose, man. You're out here for a reason. And what's your hope with this, the rise and recover? Where do you want to see that go?
Um, my hope for Rise and Recover is to help myself growth, right? Because I have to continuously stay working on myself. If I don't have myself, I don't have nothing. And I know that may sound selfish to some people, but it's really not, because if I'm together, I can help the next man. But not only the people who stuck in the addiction, I want to help the people who's affected by the addiction, because I hurt my kids along the way. I hurt my wife along the way. I hurt my other family members along the way that just wanted to see me do right. Um, where, I already have people in different countries. I want this thing to go worldwide if possible. I know that's really far fetched, but I don't care. Wherever somebody needs help, that's exactly where I want it to land. And that's just it. If they need me and they find me, I'm going to be there.
That's oh, that's heavy, man. I've got my dream is once I have enough recovery people on here, or just put them all in contact with each other, and just because there's a guy in Denver that he just goes into the trenches, like not the most. He'll go under the bridges. He'll go where the addicts hide, like like where you see the charities go in with their cameras and they want to give out. No, he doesn't do that. He'll. I mean, he goes right into the heart because he knows how the hiding spaces. So
Yeah.
just so
And I
much
agree with that.
opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree with that because I always I always wanted to help. But the way I seen myself doing it was like going and speaking to youth or going into the jails and those different type of things. But I'm going through a period in my life right now where this just happened to fall together, with a lot of encouragement. I believe in my higher power, being God, and I know how many times that I didn't listen to him. Right, everything felt so right. It was like it's got to be wrong, you know. But it hasn't been, and I'm very blessed and grateful that I went through with it because I'm talking to you right now. I believe you're out of Canada, correct?
that's right.
I would never be able to reach across borders right now if I did not take that step, if I did not walk into the unknown, the uncomfortable, because I was uncomfortable. You know how many takes I had to do. Them videos look real good, but there's about 75 takes before them. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? But it's paying dividends that I didn't even know were there. So it's very humbling. It's brought a lot of gratitude on, and really it's reignited motivation behind me. I'm going full fledged.
I love it. It's funny you mentioned the worldwide. For some reason, some of my podcasts get a lot of downloads in the Philippines, and I can't somewhere else right in the middle of nowhere of the world. But I mean, I've had a guest on here from a singer from France, and
Wow.
a lot of states, mostly in Canada, because that's where most of my following comes from. But there's no limit to who you can talk to, and the thing I love about doing these episodes is that everything is mostly text or video comments. It's you just get to have a one-on-one chat. I know we're like 2,000 miles away from each other, but I feel like we're sitting on my rec room just shooting the shit. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a guest on yesterday that's going to be out, just came out last week after this host, but in 2012, he's a pretty famous comedian in Canada, and he's from Compton in the States. But I was half in the bag, he was half in the bag. We're on this flight together, just shooting the shit, and neither one of us knew that the other person was going through hell. So, and then we just did a podcast 20 years later. So,
Yeah, that's the power of a conversation, right?
yeah,
When you have an open-minded conversation with somebody, you never know what's going to come of it. It might just be something as simple as a laugh, or a moment where it's like, hey, we connect, and something more come of it, man. And that's why you're absolutely right. Like that's how I feel about the platform. People just coming in there and talking. Sometimes we expose things that they didn't know was there. I'll just use example for last night. Like, I had an incident yesterday about memories. I went to where my aunt used to work. She was a waitress at TJ's here, and so it was heavy on my mind. I brought it up at night, and I had a guy that was real standoffish at the beginning of the group, and or at the beginning of the platform, 8 o'clock, and he's never like that, and I didn't know what happened. I didn't know if I offended him, but by the end of the hour, he had came out like and said something else, and was like, well, don't you think that's a memory? Because he was speaking about something that he experienced that day had been weighing heavy on him and how he used to be, and it was like, that the dots connected, and
yeah,
that just through conversation we moved on from where things were uncomfortable, and then boom, it really came out, and he was like, man, thank you, and there's nothing better than trying to help somebody grow and actually seeing it go into action. It's fabulous.
I love it. So, one more question for you, and then I got my stupid question I ask at the end of every episode. But
Okay.
if there's someone watching this right now that's struggling with anything, whether it's weight, drinking, drugs, anything at all, and you could say anything to anyone right now that's watching this, having a tough time, what would you say to them?
Um, Everything in life is a situational circumstance, which means it can be changed. If we're in active addiction, we can get into recovery. If we're having weight loss issues, we can get in the gym. There's a solution to everything. It's all about perspective. If you think you're right, you're right. If you think you're wrong, you're wrong. But either way, whatever you tell yourself, you're always right. So believe in yourself, make that push. Step into that fear because everything you want is on the other side of it. I know everything I've ever wanted was on the other side of fear. You know, um, God would not put us here to be miserable. He will face us with challenges, but that's all they are. They're challenges. They can be beaten. They can be overcame. And there is a way, get outside of yourself and push for the life you want for yourself because you are worth it and it is available to you. But we're going to have to put in the work to get there.
Shit, I love it. I freaking love it. Man, I appreciate you coming out with me. I'm gonna put the links, anything you want in the description. Um, my girlfriend's a part of a lot of these type of groups and stuff, so we've I always keep contact with my guests. I don't just have you on here and run away. Like, there's a lot of interaction there. It's almost like a little online. About 90% I've kept in contact with out of 60 episodes. I think you're my 61st episode. But
Okay.
so you're stuck with me now, and I've got some passion for this. I was an alcoholic for 28 years because had PTSD and I didn't know what to do with the feelings and the anxiety, so I drank to get it to go away. But just talking to you,
Well,
talk.
and that's it, Dave, right? Like, and this is just a me thing. I don't have a drinking or a drug problem. I have a cliff problem.
Yeah,
Everything that I ever felt that took me out is still here. I just deal with it different today. I took that step into fear and I faced it and I got through it. And it's so motivating for me. I just want everybody to have it, so I'm just doing my part and hopefully it makes a difference.
I love it. Okay, one more question for you. A 100 meter, 100 meter pigeon carrying contest. How many pigeons could you put in your arms and still have in your arms at the end of the race?
4,
Four.
2 for each side, I guess.
That's pretty good. That puts you about third last out of all my guests, but hey, that's four more than a few people had. They have phobias of pigeons, and they wouldn't even touch that question. So,
Mel said there was going to be something at the end, and I'm like, she wouldn't tell me. So I was like, okay. But then you came off that. Yeah, you caught me off guard. Good job, Dave.
awesome. So, everyone watching, check out if you're on TikTok, check out Cliff stuff. If you're not on TikTok, send me a message, and I'll get a message to him if you want to reach out. But yeah, like, subscribe, share, all that cool shit my 11-year-old tells me to say. And if you're out there struggling, just reach out to someone. Get through that next moment and check out Rise and Recover. We'll make it happen.
All right.